Welcome back, Starlights, to another video. My name is Camilla, and I am a licensed professional counselor coming at you with the fun topics of trauma and chronic illness and just trying to navigate a world that is not very kind to mental health, especially if you're a person of color. So today's topic is going to be medical trauma. Yay, just fun stuff. The reason why I chose this topic is just as much for me as it is to share with you guys, my community. And so if you look at my bio, I disclose that I have chronic illness and I have MS. So short explanation for those who don't know what MS is. MS stands for multiple sclerosis. It is an autoimmune disease. So for this one, your nervous system is the one that your body decides it's like, hey, yo, nah, we ain't doing that. Your nervous system, we're not doing that right now. Decides to attack it. Usually this is in the form of lesions. So get lesions on your brain, get lesions on your spinal cord, and this can affect motor activity, anything from walking, talking, memory. So fortunately my memory is not as good as it used to be pre-diagnosis. Other than that, I am grateful. I'm stable. You can't tell that I have MS, which is another thing that we'll go into. But medical trauma is a trauma that is not talked about enough, I think, especially for people of color who go through more rates of medical trauma than other populations, right? So for me, being diagnosed was traumatic. The way I was diagnosed was traumatic. I found out my diagnosis while I was in grad school. I was literally at my internship about to see clients. And I remember the world just slowed down. It just stopped. I just sobbed. And it's kind of funny, well, morbidly funny in the sense that I didn't know what MS really was. I just knew it was bad and I didn't want it. But with having a chronic illness comes a lot of dysregulation of the nervous system, right? Because there's so much you have to deal with. One is the diagnosis itself, how you get diagnosed, what's going on during that time, right? Like just receiving any sort of chronic illness diagnosis changes your life, right? It point blank, like there's no way around it. Your life is going to change after you get diagnosed. What a lot of people may not talk about is the grief that comes with that. You end up grieving, or you have to grieve, a loss of yourself that you envisioned without the chronic illness, right? For some people, that's drastic, right? For some people, maybe it's minor. Once again, I am privileged, so my MS is stable. I have had changes in my life, decisions that I've had to make personally as a result of my MS that have been very difficult. And I still have had to grieve a version of myself that I couldn't be if it weren't for my MS. Or that I could be if it weren't for my MS. And even now I'm still grieving. And it's almost 5 years later. I can count. Almost 5 years later. And it's hard. It's hard. Unless you have other friends or family members with chronic illness, no one really gets it. So that leads to another specific thing that could be dysregulating is finances. If you're American, if you know, you know. If you have a chronic illness, you're probably going to be on some form of medication if you choose to. And you are going to be worrying about how to pay for it. Unless your health insurance is stellar, like rock solid, there is going to be some anxiety there. And that was one of the first things I thought about after I got diagnosed was, how the hell am I going to pay for this expensive infusion that I need to keep myself stable? Otherwise, I'm going to deteriorate. And I think healthcare is a big issue, especially in America. That is become a privilege and not a right. And people with chronic illness shouldn't have to worry about how they're going to pay for their medication. It's very dysregulating to even think about. Once again, I've been very grateful. I've been able to manage getting my infusions to keep my MS stable. not everyone is so lucky. Insurance companies, and I speak as someone who has chronic illness, but also as a therapist and deals with insurance companies. Insurance companies are crap. They're just crap. Okay. Next up is how to navigate the relationships in your life with a chronic illness. From telling them of your diagnosis to just the aftermath of that. Okay. And some people aren't going to know how to handle it. Some people may isolate and distance themselves from you because they're scared. Some people are going to give you pity. Some people just may look at you differently, right? And that's unfortunate. Romantic relationships, you have to have those hard conversations with your significant other. If you're single and you want to date, you have to think about, when am I going to disclose this? If I disclose this to them, are they going to leave? Are they going to think, I don't want to have to take care of someone or take care of someone later in life? And that is really dysregulating and hard to deal with. And once again, traumatic, right? And you have to deal with societal standards. So the infusion that I'm on, it makes me immunocompromised. So I'm careful around people. I still wear masks because we're still in a pandemic. That hasn't changed. And the world going back to quote unquote normal is traumatic within itself. And it dysregulates me to be around a lot of people who are just caring about and recognizing that I'm at risk here. And I remember when the pandemic first happened and everyone was like brushing off COVID and they were like, unless you're like elderly or immunocompromised, you're fine. And I remember I had my boss at the time. She had no idea that I had MS because obviously, once again, to me, it's an invisible illness. You can't tell that I have it. She said that to me because, it was like, okay, yeah, we're fine. We're healthy. And I remember being like, really? Like, are we doing this now? Like, like just the ableism that occurred from the pandemic was shocking. So all my spoonies out there, I see you, I hear you, I know it's hard. For us, we have to kind of work a little bit harder to maintain our nervous system because we live in a society that, once again, ableism is real. People disregard people who have a chronic illness as disposable. And that's rough. So things definitely need to change on a systemic level. But overall, medical trauma needs to be talked about more. It needs to be addressed more. And as a clinician, I hope that if I have other clients with chronic illness, I can be that safe space for them. So I actually have my first infusion of the year tomorrow. I feel a little anxious about it, a little nervous, and I want to put it out there to you guys. I get it. It is a hard experience. So once again, thank you guys for listening and take care of yourselves.